Welcome to Season 3 of the Vanderpod, the lush and literary... Oh, is it Season 4? Is it really Season 4? Oh my gosh. All right. Welcome to Season 4 of the Vanderpod, the lush and literary podcast of Bandersnatch Books. We're a small press publisher of treasures found off the beaten path for lovers of all that is good, true, and beautiful. I'm Rachel Donahue, and friends, we are so excited about the lineup for this podcast season. We've got some wonderfully bookish conversations coming with author friends and fellow publishers, as well as some of our own Bandersnatch authors and illustrators as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of our company. That's right, we're celebrating 5 years of publishing and the 25 titles we've put into the world. We hope you delight in these conversations as much as we do. As always, if you enjoy what you hear, please share it with a friend and spread the word about the work we're doing here at Bandersnatch Books. To kick off this podcast season, I'm talking with friend and fellow Bandersnatch author Glenn McCarty about finding magic in the woods of Western North Carolina. Glenn is the author of The Song of the Stone Tiger, a new middle grade novel from Bandersnatch Books that we're describing as Calvin and Hobbes meets the Magician's Nephew. We love this book, and we can't wait to share more about it with you. So without further ado, Glenn McCarty, welcome to the Vanderpod.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be here. You guys do such amazing work, and just hearing your introduction reminded me that is incredible to have that many books. And so I'm glad to be a part of the Bandersnatch family.
Yeah, we're so glad. We've been fans of your work for a long time, and when you brought this title to us, we were just over the moon just so excited, like just from the very beginning. And we read the whole story and thought, oh, what a gem, what a treasure. So before we get too far into the conversation, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners, tell them who you are and how you got into writing?
Well, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a dad and a husband, and I teach middle school English full time. And I live here in Western New York, which is not super close to North Carolina. But as I'm sure I'll get the chance, hopefully, to talk about it, it will always have a very special place in my heart. And I write and tell stories for families and young people. So more specifically, I write the Tumbleweed Thompson Adventures, which are right now a series of 2 Western frontier adventure books set in the 1870s in Colorado. Sort of buddy books, but with some real high-stakes adventure, humor, definitely.
Yep.
I was at a conference this summer talking to some families about it, and for some reason, Anne of Green Gables popped into my head. Because even though, Anne of Green Gables could not be more different than Tumbleweed Thompson in a lot of ways, many ways, that spirit of adventure is out there, finding mischief and not feeling like you fit and that kind of thing. So that kind of story, that spirit. And then a few other spin-off books that are sort of related to the Tumbleweed Thompson books, but are all within that universe. So 5 books altogether. And then The Song of the Stone Tiger, which is but more magical kind of fantasy book, will be a little bit of a different type of story. But I'm excited about the new direction.
Yeah, so are we.
I was reminded senior year of college, my wife and I, who were engaged, we both had the chance to take a children's literature class with a phenomenal professor at Houghton University, and just, I think, reignited so many amazing books that I had grown up with. And I think when you grow up with things, you don't always recognize that maybe that's not everyone's experience, I think, of a lot of the adventure stories that I loved as a kid, the Hardy Boys and Robert McCloskey's Centerburg books, Homer Price and Centerburg Tales, even, movies like Indiana Jones and TV shows like DuckTales and things like that. And like Henry Huggins and Henry and Ribsy and The Mouse and the Motorcycle, books that were light, but also had real high stakes in them. And so it wasn't too long into that I just did the thing, which was, I think I want to try to write a novel. And definitely jumping off the cliff and then building the wings, right? I don't know how to do this. I think you write a chapter and then you write another chapter and you show them to some people and eventually you've got a book, right?
Yeah.
The process of publication was a lot longer and more complicated than I think I expected. I don't know if I was naive or just uninformed, but I think for me, the common denominator has been loving telling stories that will just invite young people into a world and just hopefully challenge them a little bit to think a little bit more deeply about the world that they live in and the kind of people they are. And I've been so fortunate to have met some really amazing people that have just provided. I mean, writing can be such a solitary thing that you kind of almost need people around you to not just encourage you, but to kind of like see how your progress is and hear what their struggle is and feel like you're not kind of just doing this Don Quixote type journey off, you know, and through like the Rabbit Room and Story Warren and just people. It's been such a blessing to have found fellow artists, fellow writers along the way.
So give our listeners kind of the elevator pitch for Song of the Stone Tiger, just broad strokes. What's the book about?
Yeah, so the book is about finding wonder in nature. A boy from Philadelphia goes to North Carolina to spend the summer at his mother's childhood home. She's recovering from lymphoma. And early in the book, he kind of just goes out of the house and kind of stumbles into this mountainous landscape and encounters the statue, a stone statue of a tiger in the woods. And for some reason, he believes that it's sad, just from sort of looking at it and spending time with it. Maybe it's his childish imagination. And so he sings to it and walks away. And soon the tiger has come to life and is standing there next to him. And so he starts to sort of investigate the mystery behind the tiger, and also starts to see that there might be some parallels between some of the things that are happening around him in this woods and some of the stories, made up stories that his mother told him when he was little. And as he sort of goes looking for answers about the tiger and where he came from, he finds that it sort of becomes a healing quest almost. He can't do a lot in his life to heal his mother as her condition sort of starts to change and worsen, but he believes that he can do something to potentially heal this tiger who every night goes back to stone until he's sung awake again the following morning. And I hope that kids and families come away from it just wanting to explore and have their hearts and minds filled with the beautiful things that this world can have, not just in nature, although I think that's a really powerful source, but also through stories that we share as families, that we tell, and obviously through music and songs. I think that's such a powerful way to experience the Creator, God, because He's given us all these beautiful gifts. Sometimes we have a chance to take for granted, you know?
Yeah. And you've done such a good job of weaving those things in the story in a way that the readers experience them. Like, you're not just describing these things, you're inviting them into the scene with Thomas and Shalimar. And it's just so beautiful and it's so fun. That whole Calvin and Hobbes vibe of like this boy and this tiger playing, and yet it's not exactly safe always, you know, like it's got that edge of adventure that there's always wondering, like, what is this? Am I safe? But it's just that adventure, that magic that just draws you in. It's just such a beautiful story. So I'm curious, what sparked the idea for this story in the first place?
Oh man, I wrote it without a lot of a plan. But this one, more than anything else, began with this picture almost of this beautifully sculpted stone tiger. And what would happen if? That's a great opening thought for a story, is like, what would happen if? So what if there was this kid who wasn't from this really beautiful, picturesque place? What if he was different? What if he came upon this tiger, and what if by singing it, it came back to life? And that's the part of it that I really can't explain where that idea comes from. I do know that there's a beautiful album by Jeremy Casella, who's a Nashville singer-songwriter producer, called Death in Reverse. And I do know that I was listening to this album a lot when I was writing this book. And I think there's even a song on that album called Sing Me Back. And I feel like that idea, that those lyrics of his kind of put that idea of that Thomas is able somehow to sort of sing this tiger back into our world. And then that just becomes such a great idea. because I think that's, to me, what makes fantasy so great, is sometimes some of the things that we sort of talk about metaphorically
Mm-hmm.
are actually like literally possible.
Yeah.
The best example is Eustace in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, sort of like literally taking on this dragon form
Mm-hmm.
when he's sort of been behaving like a dragon the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that idea of like giving stories and songs like literal power
Mm-hmm.
was a way to hopefully make it a little bit more concrete, what they're always doing.
Right.
Those songs that we love, they are bringing us back,
Mm-hmm.
to life. So I don't know. I think that's where the seed came from. And then the setting of the mountains of North Carolina was just one of those settings that for whatever reason I visited when I was like late middle school, early high school, on church mission trips and traveling through on family trips and stuff, because I grew up in the farther south in Florida. And it just kind of stuck as this place that was beautiful, yes, but there was like a richness and a depth to it that seemed to be very mysterious and possibly magical. Like it didn't seem far-fetched that if you were there and you hadn't been there before, that you could, almost like in the first chapter when Thomas is sort of looking out the window at these mountains, he starts to think about like dwarves and like all these things that could be happening in these mountains, and he would never even know it. There's just something about that landscape that, and it just sort of coincidentally last summer, a little over a year ago, we as a family did this long road trip where we went down from Western New York through Western Virginia and then down into this part of North Carolina where the story is set. And this was probably 6 weeks before Hurricane Helene came through.
Yeah. Yeah. So you wrote this book in 2014. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's a long time between the initial writing of the story and publication. So tell me a little bit about that process. What made you kind of shelve it and work on other things? And who were some of the people who spoke into the story and shaped the story? And why now? Like, what brought it back to the surface?
Yeah, I think the fact that it was written without a lot of a plan and fairly early on. I think I had only been sort of seriously doing this writing thing for 5 or 6 years, and had a lot of, I don't want to use the word rejection, but had sent prior manuscripts out to agents and things, and without a lot of great success. I think I sort of finished this, wrote it for myself, honestly, and for my kids and my wife, because at the time, my kids were 4 and 6. And we were just starting to have all of these great outdoor adventures. We live in a pretty good, like, rural part of Western New York. So I was like, I love this. This is so much fun. I have no idea if this is anything right now. And so, like, they were familiar with it. They really enjoyed it. But I think it was definitely, I'm really glad you added that part of your question about like people speaking into it, because I think this manuscript needed some cheerleaders and believers for it to come back, because I don't think I was like courageous enough with it. And so I sent it to a couple of friends who commented on it, said it was lovely, all that stuff. But within a couple years, Tumbleweed Thompson kind of invaded my life, and I was more than happy to chase down all of those great stories and enjoy all of that. And that just became more immediate. But every so often, my wife or one or both of my kids would be like, "Are you ever going to do anything with Stone Tiger? Like, what's going to happen with that?" But 2020 happened, and I found myself with a lot of time in that next year. And for some reason, I was just kind of like, maybe I'll get that back out and like see what that was all about. And really, it was as straightforward as saying, is this worth working on anymore? Or was it just a thing that was like a work in progress and a means to an end?
Yeah.
At the time, 3 really great friends of mine, S.D. Smith and James Whitmer, also a story-worn guy, and Carolyn Leiloglu, we were doing these semi-regular Zoom chats. Like I think a lot of people were, just to kind of like stay sane and talk to people.
That's right. Yeah.
But also we would encourage each other with the projects that we were working on. And at some point in the course of that, I think I sent that manuscript to Carolyn. Here, can you just tell me what this is? And Carolyn is fantastic at telling it like it is, right? I knew that she wasn't going to pat me on the head kind of thing. Like if it wasn't going to work, she was going to tell me why it wasn't going to work. And I love that. And so that was like the first of a few different people who said, no, I think this has really got something here. And then that actually, I had a wonderful agent named Don Pape who also like came along. I sent it to him, and he was very willing to work hard to try to help it to find the right home. And lo and behold, on New Year's Day of this year, which was like the most amazing thing, literally opened up my email on New Year's Day, and there was this email from Bandersnatch, and I thought, this, like, I just didn't have words. I was just like, this is so perfect. This is just so perfect.
Yeah, we were excited too. It just feels like the perfect fit of having this friendship and being fans of your work, and then here's this new story that is so different than the things you've done before, and it just aligns so well with the kind of books we love. And we are just so thrilled to get to be the ones to introduce this story to the world. So thank you, Don Pape.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you, Don Pape. I would add, I think it was probably Jane Yolen, who's like one of the legends of children's literature. I went to hear her at a conference several years ago, and she said something like she never gives up on like any manuscript she's ever written. She always makes sure she has a place for it, so that if she goes back to it, it could be used for something. Who knows? I mean, there are certainly things that, like, I have things that I do not want ever to see the light of day because of their quality, but there aren't, like, sometimes we're not necessarily the best judge of our stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes we write things and they're good, like it's a good start, but then I think something needs to mature or form in us to complete the story. I remember having conversations with Lauren Warnemundy about her trilogy, and hers was 25 years in the writing of that whole series. And yet you get the beauty of young, starry-eyed Lauren, and also the wizened, experienced mother as well. And you get both of those in one manuscript. And I think it's really hard to pull that off if you don't have some time with it. And so maybe not every manuscript needs that, but I think sometimes it helps them ripen a little bit and kind of deepen. You know, you have the story, you have the seed of something, but then once you have a little bit more experience or a little bit more time to let that simmer, it just goes deeper, and I think it makes it a really rich reading experience. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I agree. Yeah.
So this story, it's a playful story, but it deals with grief. And when I first read it, it hit me the way Kate DiCamillo's books do, in that way that it's like a delightful story. It pulls you in, it keeps you reading and turning pages, and yet it just hits so deep emotionally. And I mean, I just about can't read a Kate DiCamillo book without crying. And this hit me in that same place of just, it's just such a beautiful experience. And so I remember reading a Robert Frost quote: "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. No surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader." So I'm just wondering, like, what was your experience of writing this story? It's a depth of grief, and yet it deals with it so beautifully and playfully even.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Kate DiCamillo, I will take that. She is absolutely one of my all-time favorites, and she's able to tell what I think is the truth about the world. This mixture of joy and sorrow, almost in moments, you know. So she does it so well. I think the surprise part of it, I think that was sort of like the benefit of almost like deliberately going in without an idea of this fixed plot, because it really allowed me to just sort of like become this young person experiencing all of this for the first time. And it felt more like discovery. I think it felt really authentically like discovery. And I think the idea of, one of the things I hope that this book does is it celebrates like small moments. I think when you are younger, there's something about, like, there's this passage in the book where Thomas is like eating an apple, and while he's eating the apple, he like sees these ants, and he like digs out a piece of the apple and drops it on the ground and just sort of sits and watches the ants with the little bit of apple. And for me, like, I wanted that to be a slow, drawn out process, because that's like a wondrous little moment that you can have. If you just sort of slow down and like pay attention, those kinds of things are everywhere.
Yeah.
And so for me, sure, it was a matter definitely of like forcing myself to slow down as the writer to like make sure that I'm capturing these moments. But then once you do, like you allow yourself to just be surprised by all these things.
Mm.
And the grief part of it, I mean, it definitely, it's risky as I think as a writer putting a young person through this just to tell a really good story. It's almost, it can feel that way. And I think it was really important for me to like almost a challenge to like find a new way to show someone going through this kind of thing as a young person.
Mm.
I've been very fortunate personally.
Mm.
I haven't experienced personally much of that,
Mm.
as far as family and stuff. We've had a couple of examples in the past couple of years, some really dear friends of ours who have suddenly passed away.
Mm.
But I think another young adult author who does this so well is Gary D. Schmidt,
Mm.
where he isn't afraid to take a young person to that place.
Mm.
And because I think he knows, I feel like it's true. Like in Thomas's situation, I mean, these are the kinds of things that like most people are carrying around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I teach eighth graders, 13-year-olds, and I think when I watch them come into the classroom and sit down and do English, in a class of 20 people, who knows if a quarter of them, maybe more, are carrying around things that are really heavy, that like you would be very surprised to hear that like they're carrying that stuff around. And so for me, it's just being respectful enough of that to say, okay, this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
but let me try to present it in a way that helps someone feel like they're not alone, their emotions are authentic and real. I think authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that comes from just creating characters that you feel like the characters are authentic, and so
Yeah.
when they're doing something, their reactions are going to be authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely, like the whole story comes across that way. Like no part of it felt forced. It was just, no, this is who this child is and his family. And these are just the circumstances, he has all these hopes of it's summer break and all the fun things they're going to do. And then things start getting canceled and plans change. And there's this underlying fear and anxiety. And yet also this invitation to wonder. Like his dad's like, no, go explore the woods. And he's given that freedom. And I think kids need that. And not a lot of kids get that today. I mean, we are fortunate to live in a place where there are woods nearby and our kids can just go exploring and disappear for a couple hours and I don't see them until they wander back in hungry. And not everybody lives in a context where they can do that. And so the fact that somebody could read this book and get a taste of what that independence is like in a way that I felt was really authentic. Like I felt like, oh, these are safe boundaries. There's enough of the bad stuff of the world going on, and yet there is a place where this kid can be a kid and can explore and have adventures. And it was just, oh, I cannot wait to share this story with my own kids. I'm so excited to hear their thoughts.
Yeah, I think what makes middle grade so beautiful to me is that there's that, but then there's always usually I'm trying to find a way to have like those young people be just sort of called upward into a little bit more of independence
Yeah.
and maturity and responsibility. And I think that's definitely one of Thomas's big moments that happens in this story is he's thrust into this place of being almost like a caretaker for this tiger. And he's like, I don't know how to do this. Are you kidding me? I'm like 10, almost 11 years old, right? But the love that he has, he sort of digs
Yeah.
in and like commits to it. And in the process of committing to it, he grows. He learns things about himself. He learns things about like what it means to sacrifice and what maybe even almost, I think it's kind of unsaid, but I think, like what his parents have gone through, like
Yeah.
raising
Yeah.
him, being his
Yeah.
caretaker.
And that as you were talking, that reminds me of the scene where his dad references Corey Ten Boom in The Hiding Place. And you see this moment of that his dad is willing to speak the truth to him about his mom's condition and not kind of play it down. He's entrusting him with the truth because he feels like, you know what, you're old enough to handle this emotionally for this next bit. And it was just such a beautiful moment of like, there is a bit of coming of age, of maturing and that happens through the course of the story. And it's just so beautiful. It really is. Like kids need this, just to see these examples of getting to grow with Thomas through the course of this story. And I absolutely love it. So I want to know, what are the stories that formed you as a boy? Like, what are the things that deeply captured your imagination?
Yeah, I mean, Narnia in a lot of different ways. The books, for sure. Also, we watched the BBC. I don't know if they were like TV movies or something, adaptations, but Narnia was deeply formative for sure. And a lot of the things that I've expressed about like wonder and truth in a way that is metaphorical and just the sort of odd. The Dawn Treader is just like absolutely spectacular. I just think formative. I think that the idea of sailing and a boat and undiscovered places and islands, like, oh my gosh. And I think I did. I kind of rolled off a few different things, right? I loved The Mouse and the Motorcycle. I loved the Hardy Boys. I was always a big fan of like serial stuff, like SER.
Yeah.
I love serial. I love serial too, by the way. But like the story continues. The story continues, right? I just have always loved that. Even like the Andy Griffith Show, like stories that are like grounded in a place, and you can kind of go back to that place and like what was like on the next block that wasn't in that last story. Oh, we're gonna go there. Oh, that's great. Let's find out what was happening down there, right? It just makes you feel, I think, as a kid, very like knowledgeable. And I think people are discovering that. I mean, like obviously like the MCU, like that's a whole thing, but this idea of worlds and like adding in pieces to them. But I've always loved stories that were like silly and humorous. I did really love Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side and comic strips like that. Obviously, I'm of an age as well where the Muppets were like deeply formative. And I've actually written about, like, all kidding aside, like there's a book out there from Square Halo Press about finding holiness in gospel in ordinary things. And I have an essay in there about finding the gospel in the Muppets.
I love it. So I think our fellow Bandersnatch author Ken Priebe would 100% be on the same page.
Oh yeah,
he
Ken and I
also
are
was
like Muppet
deeply
brothers.
influenced.
Yeah. Yes.
I love it. Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, before we wrap it up for today, I have a couple little popcorn questions for you. If you could be a mythical creature, what would you be?
Animal from the Muppets.
I love it. That is amazing.
The giant animal from the Muppet movie. I feel like that makes him a little more mythical.
Yes, there you go.
Batman. Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite place to be outdoors?
Two places. My backyard in the summer, reading, Adirondack chair, big willow right in front of me, my wife reading next to me. Or we love going to Acadia National Park in Maine. It's just a beautiful place that it's like one of those thin places. It's just so much easier to feel the presence of God.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot. That's one of my like wish list places. Like, I hope we can get there with the family one day, because from all the pictures I've seen, it really is just a magically beautiful place. What's your favorite word to say?
Oh, I'm glad you put to say, because I feel like as an English teacher and a writer, I should have some impressive words. But I really love saying the word monkey.
Monkey.
It's just monkey. I don't know why. It makes me chuckle. Yeah.
I love it. All right. And one last question. Do you have snacks that you eat or a special drink that you drink while you're writing?
I love cashews.
Really?
Yeah, they're great.
So you're popping cashews while you're munching cashews while you're writing?
Yes.
All
Hopefully
right.
not too many, because they're salty.
That's great. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us on the Banderpod today. It has been just a delight to get to chat books and stories with you for a little while. And I hope our listeners take the opportunity to go explore The Song of the Sown Tiger and share it with their friends and loved ones, because it really is just a wonderful, wonderful story.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Thank you, friends, for listening. May you each find bookish treasures in your wanderings off the beaten path. Thanks for listening in to our conversation today on the Banderpod. We hope you'll check out our full catalog at bandersnatchbooks.com. The Banderpod is produced by Rachel S. Donahue, A.B. Donahue, and Carolyn Claire Givens. Audio engineering by SDG Morgan. Artwork by Evelyn Warnamundy. Many thanks to our friend Chris Slayton of Son of Laughter for our theme song, Cricket in a Jar. Find links and more in the show notes.